There we are. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Good Truth. My name is Den. I'm your host. This is a show, well, directly about what the name says. It's about the good truth. We're living in a society today of disinformation, shitty social media platforms, and, what is true, what is not. It's not just a show about the truth. It's a show that's just heavily against disinformation in the media sphere and in the public, but it's also a show about politics, pop culture, and just whatever's happening in the average daily life of us worldly civilians. This is our second episode. First episode was a few months back. We had quite a few difficulties, quite a few things happening in that span of time. One thing that happened is a certain group of people, less than 50% of the nation, elected the biggest dumbass in American history. That was a reason to kind of take a break from media for a little while. It already happened. There's nothing we can do about it. So what's the rush? I think it's healthy for everybody to kind of take a little bit of a break now and again from all of this negative media that's constantly beating us against the head every single day. It's negative. It's ugly. It's not healthy. It's bad for mental health in general. And it's really good to just take a break. So that's what I've done. I didn't leave. I just took a break. I also had a couple other things happening in between there. I adopted a cat and I lost the cat, which was heartbreaking, and I just didn't feel like doing much. I've also had a lot of hard work that I've been working on outside of the show, but I assure you we want to continue this program. Thank you for being here. If you would like to start us off well, don't forget to go around to all of the social media platforms, at least the ones that we have. We are at The Good Truth just about everywhere. We're on Twitter, which we won't be for that long, hopefully, but we are currently on Twitter at The Good Truth X, at the Good Truth X on Twitter. We are here on Twitch at The Good Truth. We're on YouTube at The Good Truth, and you can even send us an email, thegoodtruth@gmail.com. Tell us what you think about the show and how we could improve it. But what do we get into today? There's been a lot going on since the election of the moron in chief, and there's almost so much that's happened. It's impossible to cover in one show, but we're going to kind of aimlessly discuss and go through some of the relevant and important things that have occurred. But what do you think? You think the background music? You think we need that? I'm not sure how the volume is on. I think it's low enough to where it's not going to be super bothersome, so we might give it a try. Although it is a little distracting to me, to be honest. Let's see. There we go. Turn it down on my headphones there. So where do we begin? I thought I'd start off today with a little story about a friend of mine, an old friend of mine. His name is Adam. Adam from Texas. We'll call him Adam from Texas. And poor Adam he was a pretty great guy back in the day. I knew him for about 20 years. He was in the rave scene in Texas. And there's a lot of crazy people I met out there way back in the day. He was one of them. He was, back then, popular in the rave scene. A lot of people were saying the word plur, right? Peace, love, unity, respect. He was one of those guys, kind of like a neo-hippie, if you will, in the early 2000s. He was around the drug scene. He was around, there's quite a few gay people and trans people, even back then, in the rave scene in the late 90s, early 2000s in Dallas, Texas. So he was a pretty open-minded cat. Adam has been on my Facebook friends for all of this time, since, the inception of Facebook, essentially. I moved away from Texas, obviously, to here in our bunker in smoky Southern California, where I've been for, the last 20 years. And Adam remained my Facebook friend. I didn't reach out to him too much. We didn't converse too much over the years, but you just keep connected with the people that you remember fondly, and I'm sure a lot of people out there do the same thing. But more and more, before the election came about, I noticed that Adam was increasingly posting more and more right-wing propaganda, which it's hard to deal with sometimes when there are people that you want to keep in your social media sphere, but they're posting lies, disinformation, misinformation. People like me, I'm an outspoken individual, have a lot of trouble holding that stuff in for the long term, which I did in a lot of ways. Family members I still have yet to really lash out to. There's a couple of them, but they're posting his slimmed down a little bit. They're propaganda posting. Anyhow, Adams was increasing and getting increasingly more volatile as time went on, right up to the election, and I couldn't hold it in any longer. So I reached out to him on one of his posts. I can't remember which one it was at the moment. But I reached out to him in a respectful way. There are some people on social media that I've reached out to about their propaganda in a very stern, not hostile, but stoic, cold kind of a manner, a strong manner. And, there's certain people you want to get your point across to a little stronger than others. And some people you want to kind of put on kitty gloves, at least in the beginning. Anyway, I put on kitty gloves with Adam when I first reached out to him and just commented on the illegitimacy of his post. And we got into it pretty hard. He mentioned to me that I was one of his last liberal friends on his social media that he's kept because he had fond memories of me, and I'm not outwardly being as crazy as apparently his other liberal friends have been. So we kind of got into a little bit. I told him I respect him and he was a good dude back in the day, and I've got fond memories of him and I appreciate him for who he is and blah, 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 blah. He's now got a very pretty, wonderful looking family and all that stuff. And we started going in on each other as to our standpoints. A funny thing about Adam from Texas is that he started off his, if you want to call it argument, with like a justifier, right? He went on to tell me, hey, I used to hate Donald Trump. Like, I used to hate the guy. And then I learned the truth. And after I started learning the truth and realizing how the justice system and the deep state has been against him this whole time, and I really began to learn, then I started to love the guy because I know he's there for me, blah, 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 blah. He pulled that whole move as to sound more legitimate in his belief system because he's really got information for me. He's going to teach me something. He's going to turn me, apparently. And so having that justifier, quantifier, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, of his turnaround from hating Trump to now being a big fan of his was a really important statement he needed to make to me. Funny thing about that statement is it was like my actual story in reverse. The funny thing about him telling me that is that I actually used to quite like Trump. I've never been a fanboy of anybody. I'm not like a celebrity guy that fangirls over anybody, but I didn't dislike Trump. I liked him to an extent, his persona. I had at one point downloaded his book. I can't remember the name of it now. We all know his famous book about business. I choose to forget these things on purpose nowadays because he's such a disgusting figure. Having any relevant information about him in my head is just a waste of space. Anyway, I downloaded his book. I was a bit of I guess a fan or whatever. I watched the first couple of seasons of The Apprentice. I ended up getting very into Celebrity Apprentice. And to be honest, it wasn't necessarily for Trump, right? Like, I can't say I was a big fan, like I've been saying. Like, you're fired, I'm a big tough businessman. Like that didn't necessarily appeal to me, but I did like the show. I watched every single season, every single episode of Celebrity Apprentice. Mostly because, you got a lot of has-been washed up actors, celebrities, performers trying to do business tasks and running around like crazy people. It's garbage reality TV, which I enjoyed. So I became a very big fan of that show. I like Trump, cool. Until he started getting into the media and began his from day one of Trump being in politics, he started everything off with lies, like from the very first day. It was the birther movement, right? Like, was Obama really born in America? He wasn't really born in the United States. He's a fake. He's a fraud. He shouldn't be president. Like, that was the beginning of Trump. And that was the beginning of Trump and his lies and the lies in the media and how disgusting it has gotten. The propaganda that's occurred from it. It all began right there. Anyhow, so going back to the story of Adam from Texas, I was actually a fan of Trump and then went in the other direction. So I started off this communication with Adam where we are very opposite. He says, I used to hate Trump and now I love Trump. And I said, I used to like Trump and now I hate Trump, which is strange. And the reason I don't quite believe him and that he was just using it is like a qualifier, that's the word I'm looking for, is because before Trump got into politics, nobody hated Trump. Like, nobody like legitimately hated Trump in the public. Obviously, there were people that he screwed over in business, that he defrauded, that he sued or paid to keep them quiet. You know, those people obviously hate him, but they're, you know, that's a small bubble. And, you know, when him and his company paid to keep people quiet, it wasn't exactly in the forefront of the media how, you know, Trump is an awful person. So in general, people didn't really hate Trump. You know, people like Trump. They like the shows, whatever. It was just Trump. So the fact that Adam from Texas started off this conversation with, I used to hate Trump and then I learned to love him, already, even though it was the exact opposite of my situation, it was just unbelievable. There just wasn't people out there that hated him. So anyways, the conversations went on. You know, he was trying to tell me about BlackRock stuff, you know, the assassination, blah, 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 just going over and over and over all these kind of repeated, you know, propaganda, deep state, they type arguments. And I would always come back to him with things that I know to be fact, generally data-driven information, actual factual statements based on like things that he said publicly or he has done publicly. And, you know, as a Trump supporter, he just wanted to deny all of those things. Anyway, I've already made this long story long, but so we had some back and forth, you know, after the assassination, and we both kind of tried to do it in a fairly healthy manner, it seemed. Mostly on my side, I was trying to understand and be understanding of him while letting him know that facts are more important than these things that you hear. And it went away for a little while. We remained friends on Facebook. And then one day he decided to post a like Trump Hitler meme, right? It was one of those memes that was like something, I don't remember it exactly, but something like, ha ha ha, all these stupid liberals who actually think Trump is like Hitler, whatever. I don't know. And I responded to it with, you know, something to the extent of, well, there's actually quite a lot of similarities between Donald Trump and Hitler. For instance, the symbolism, the gathering of people together under a symbolic moniker, right? The MAGA red hat symbolism. You know, it's very reminiscent of like the swastika armbands and the Nazi kind of stuff. But on top of that, I mentioned how in multiple speeches of his, he's directly quoted Hitler. And while the right likes to deny those things and say that the left are the crazy ones for comparing him to Hitler when he's done nothing even similar to Hitler, they refuse to recognize the baby steps on the way to becoming Hitler. You're doing things that sound like Hitler, that look like Hitler, that remind people of Hitler. We're not necessarily saying that you are Hitler yet, but you sure as hell are doing a lot of things to remind us of Hitler. Anyway, so I mentioned those things based on fact, and he responded with this rude, crazy thing. Like, I knew you wouldn't be able to help yourself but to respond to this, as though he purposefully baited that post just to get me to respond, which immediately just kicked me off in like a really irritated manner. Like, come on, dude. What first of all, it's just bullshit. Second of all, I didn't reply in like a demeaning manner. I just replied with factual things. And then that began like a really long back and forth in this conversation with Adam from Texas, in which I delineated my beliefs and utilizing the facts that occurred throughout Trump's campaign that made him look like Hitler. And then he immediately freaked out and just went into, you're brainwashed. You believe anything. All you leftists believe anything they tell you. Kamala is a prostitute. She sucked dick to get where she is. She doesn't deserve to be there. She's DEI. Woke. Like just spewed all of this right-wing bullshit at me all at once in one long paragraph, and then continued posting memes of how I am brainwashed. And that really pissed me off. and I'm sure he knew it would piss me off, because all of the things I said were based in fact, and all of the things that he spewed back about the Kamala prostitute stuff, none of that was based in fact at all, in any way, shape, or form. And then he jumps the gun to make sure to call me brainwashed before I can get to calling him that, which I think is another tactic that the right has been using, or at least these right-wing argumentative online people. They're just like, because they have such a self-consciousness about their cult-like tendencies and their brainwashed tendencies, that now they need to jump the gun and call everybody else brainwashed before they get a chance to say it to them. So he jumped the gun. He called me brainwashed after only stating facts. And then because we had such a big back and forth on this post, and he got so triggered and then spewed all those lies and whatever, then he unfriended me, which, like, we had conversed back and forth saying, I'm glad we're still able to remain friends even though we see things differently. He unfriended me. And then I was like, oh, Adam from Texas, you son of a bitch. You called me brainwashed, then you immediately unfriend me. And then I tried to go on his page, and boom, it was gone. He blocked me. Adam from Texas, after his little childish stunt, he blocks me. And I'm like, that's what a psychopath. Like, that is the epitome of brainwashing. Like somebody that acts like that, right? And then he unblocks me. So it was like 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, whatever, I check in. All of a sudden, I can see his page again. And then I realized he was trying to squelch and delete all of my comments from his post. So the reason he unfriended me, then blocked me, then unblocked me was to have all of my stuff removed from his page. All of the stuff that I posted on multiple posts of his over time that only had evidence-based discussion, and then his freak out and propaganda-filled stuff, he just wanted to remove it all, delete me, to censor me essentially from his page so nobody could see his freak out, or that my replies to his freak outs were like just evidence-based and real. And so that they could only see that he owned a lib maybe. And it was the most cowardly, weak-minded thing I've ever experienced. And this was coming from an old friend that I was really trying hard to maintain, despite all his propaganda. So after all that long story, I mean, it just made me realize how deeply profound their level of tribalism and I mean, the only word is brainwashing. How brainwashed they are. Like, they cannot see their way out of it. Nothing matters other than their belief systems. And I mean, this was a guy who was also posting, like, after he voted, stuff like to his other MAGA people, like, I just got back home. I'm glad we did the right thing to save America. We're going to get America back on track. Blah, blah, blah. And it was like, dude, you're so fucking brainwashed. Crazy, crazy shit. And, you know, as time goes on and through all the experiences that I've had socializing with people in different groups or in social media, having conversations about MAGA and right and left wing politics, this has been the behavior from a lot of them. And it's, in my opinion, cowardly, weak, and it's sad more than anything. And the funny thing about all of this is that behavior, that weakness, that cowardice is exactly what they're projecting onto people on the left, calling the left the weak people, calling the left the cowards, because they seem to think, since we generally have a sense of empathy and we don't punch down to marginalized communities, trans communities, minority communities, that we're the weak ones. I think they envision us as part of these minorities that are potentially weaker than them. So they're able to punch down and put us in that group. Meanwhile, they do these very cowardice tactics, like the blocking and unblocking, as to censor any conversation that we'd previously had. So that's just one anecdotal story, long story, if you will, about recent behavior from an old MAGA friend that I can now confidently say is no longer my friend. But what I will say right now to you, Adam from Texas, go fuck yourself. MAGA's weak. MAGA will always be weak, and we have to teach them. We don't have to teach them. We have to show them how weak they are, in my opinion. So fuck you, Trump, right? We got a long 4 years to look ahead to. Yeah. I mean, that's my view of MAGA anyway. Like, I don't believe MAGA are the tough guys that they pretend to be. I think they're all a bunch of weaklings. MAGA people are the people in high school that were too afraid to stand up to the popular guy or to the bully. MAGA people today are people that punch down, just like Trump does. Trump never punches up. He never even punches sideways, right? He wants to collect his billionaire buddies so they can, fucking conspiracy together and then punch down to everybody else because he's a weak pansy. We're going to call him a pansy instead of the word that rhymes with wussy. And I think all MAGA people are that. Like, they're all emulating this guy who punches down. These are the people in high school who are not cool, and they were just normal enough to not be picked on, right? They're the ones that followed along with the leaders in their high school, the popular kids, and punched down and picked on the weaker people in high school because they themselves were so pathetic and so weak that they were afraid to stand up to the hierarchy of high school. These are the MAGA people. They come together under symbolic feature. They all memorize and hold the same exact beliefs all the way down the line. Like people that had 10 abortions. I know so many people that are MAGA now that have had like 3 abortions. It's crazy. Who used to smoke tons of weed and do it like they're not right wingers. They're not these big Christians. They're not pro-life. Or at least they didn't used to be. But because MAGA is their clique and they're all under this MAGA hat bullshit, now they have to believe everything. Now they're Christians. Now they're pro-life. Now they're like, they're probably still smoking weed, but they're just going to agree with whatever they can to be part of this club because they're the weak people. They're the fucking weaklings, right? And I think the people on the left, at least the people that I know on the left, yes, they tend to be more empathetic, right? Which, in my opinion, is probably one of the best qualities a human being can have. And they're the people that stand up for others, punch upwards, fight the people that are doing fucking awful things to other people, right? That's who I am. That's who I identify with. I can never be one of these pieces of shit on the right, falling in line, putting on a hat like a little pansy that they are and punching down to everybody. I can never be that guy. I will take the harder fight. I will take the harder battle, and I will stand up for the little guy, fight oppression, fight bigotry, fight hatred, and fight basically everything that MAGA stands for, which is getting increasingly harder as time goes on. So fuck those MAGA weaklings, man. And that's something that I think we need in this space more than anything, is, like, I hate to identify myself with like bro culture or whatever, but like that's one of the things that changed over the last 4 years that was a big lead into Trump winning the election, was the manosphere and a little bit of the entertainment industry, right? And they kind of grouped together in one little lump thing. It was like when Rogan decided to turn to the right? That was like the shift that brought all the bros over the manosphere, over to Trump. That and the UFC bullshit. As a matter of fact, let's get our little flag up for this conversation here. There we go. Fuck Joe Rogan, right? That was the big turn. is when these guys started to turn. And I saw this. I wish I had a podcast. I wish I had a show a couple of years ago when before Rogan had turned, because I said to a lot of people back in the day. I remember when Joe Rogan got his contract with Spotify. It was something like a $25 million contract. And the first thing I said after that contract is, watch, Joe's going to turn to the right. He's going to turn to the right. And you know why all these people consistently become rich and turn to the right? It's because of the damn tax breaks. Does Joe Rogan, is he pro-life? No, dude. He's pro-choice. At least he always has been in the past. Does he smoke weed? Yeah, dude, the left is responsible for legalizing marijuana across the country. It's the left. Most of his beliefs through his entire career and history on his podcast are left-leaning beliefs. So why did he turn right? Bro, when you are bringing in $100 million, a 10% tax break to the rich is an extra $10 million in your pocket, right? Like that's multiple houses. You know, that's a lifestyle, a bigger lifestyle that you get to live by doing that. So the minute he got that deal, I was like, I bet you he's going to turn to the right. And he did. Joe Rogan slowly evolved into a right winger. He moved to Texas. He buddied up with Elon. This was all very, it's very easy to be able to make this call, especially in hindsight. But it wasn't just that. Obviously, Joe Rogan kind of had a stranglehold on the comedy scene. Well, with the podcast becoming so popular, everybody was just on his ass, trying to get a piece of it, trying to get on a show, trying to get noticed. And one of the big things the comedy community has hated for years and years now is cancel culture. Which I believe isn't necessarily the fault of the left. It's just part of what happened in culture, online culture, mostly. And the fact that you just couldn't say racist jokes anymore, or you couldn't say the word retard anymore, things like that. Like, you're not talking about the highest echelon of intelligent people on the planet when you're talking about stand-up comics, right? But they've proven to have so much more power than we ever thought that they had. But those were like the issues, right? Oh, I can't say retard anymore. Oh, I can't make black jokes anymore. Oh man, I can't say the word tranny anymore. This sucks. And then, you give Joe Rogan $100 million and start throwing him right-wing kind of propaganda bullshit here and there. He claimed to have an open mind all of this time, but he just kept listening to more and more of this right-wing bullshit, and having the power that he had, he moved in that direction. So fuck you, Joe Rogan. He's one of the people that began all this. And it was obvious to me during Kamala's run, when he had fucking Trump on his podcast, the fact that Kamala didn't jump into that, like, I think it was like a week before the election or something. And the podcast, Joe Rogan Trump podcast, had like 300 million views in like the first day. Like that's an insane group of people that's potentially going to vote. And the fact that she turned that down was a big mistake. The fact that she turned down a lot of the media within the manosphere was a mistake, in my opinion. But the problem is we're still talking about weak people, weak-minded people. The fact that the manosphere, the people in the manosphere, the tough guys, the gym guys, the bros, the athletes, the comics, if you will, the fact that you think you've got to be a right-wing propaganda pusher in order to be one of those things is ridiculous. And I believe that we need more tough guys in this space, in the, I guess if you want to call it liberal media, in the manosphere. We need, because there's a lot more people like me that are semi-intelligent, athletic, kind of tough guys that aren't going to punch down, that protect the little guy, that stick up for marginalized communities. There's a lot of us out there, and they've got this idea that they view us as like this group of weak, pink-haired, vagina hat wearing people, which we are not. And I think it's time for us to have a bigger voice and stand up. But with that, fuck you, Joe Rogan. You pansy ass. The fact that you could not stand up for your own beliefs, the fact that you took a payday in money and got swindled by the right because you became part of the elite group and you want a tax break and you're gonna sell out your entire country and all the people that have followed you for all these years. Fuck you, Joe Rogan. You're a pansy. You're a wussy. You don't deserve the media that you have. We want you out. So I mean that's one of my boycotts right there. You think I'm ever gonna listen to the Joe Rogan podcast again? Hell no. I'm not gonna give him a single damn view. He doesn't deserve it. He's sold out. He's part of the billionaire bro conspiracy peddlers now. Like, do you really want that? Like, if I was a right winger, that's the shit that drives me crazier than anything else. If I was a right winger and I realized that all of these people are constantly lying to me and manipulating me, and I'm giving them my money, and then they're doing it more and more and more, I would be so fucking mad, right? Wouldn't you? Like, if I realized my president was constantly lying to me and manipulating me, saying that they're eating dogs and cats so I'll vote for him, like to get me mad and like to control me, I would be so pissed off. The fact that my comic, the guys I looked up to, my podcasters, to find out that they're lying and manipulating me so they can get an extra 10% off of their taxes so they can buy their yachts and shit, I would be pissed off because they're the ones taking our money. We're giving them our money. Every time we view their shit, listen to their shit, promote their shit, we're doing the work for them and they're taking our money while they're lying to us. I would be fucking mad if I was a right winger. But, you know, they're brainwashed. And I think a lot of them have mental illness, you know? Like, that's what happens in today's society, where you see people like him getting richer and richer and richer, and we're still stuck in the same place. Even the right wingers, they feel that same pain. Like, they're not moving up. They're not able to buy their house or afford their house or make their life bigger and better like they dreamed about, while these people keep getting rich and they want change, right? What they don't realize is these people work for us, right? The people in the government that are lying, your Marjorie Taylor Greens, your Lauren Boeberts, the chick who last year took $200,000 from oil companies so she can continue to spout anti-science misinformation. Like, these people are supposed to work for us, right? But instead, they're lying to us and manipulating us into voting for them so that they will pass policies to make them richer, right? But they work for us. And that's why we need to take the power back. And the first way to take the power back is with your money. And that's why you got to stop listening to douchebags like Rogan. There are way more ethical douchebags out there. If you want to listen to a douchebag talk about fighting and comedy and whatever, there's a lot more ethical douchebags out there, not somebody that's going to take a payday and sell out his entire country. So fuck you, Rogan. Rogan, you're our number one pansy today. Fuck you. Let's see. Who else is gonna be the pansy of the day? I made a bunch of these signs up here, these little flags, for all our pansy right wing conspiracy peddlers. Can we make this bigger? I think we need to make this bigger. How do we do that? There we go. F you, Joe Rogan. I think that kind of brings us over to Dana White, doesn't it? I mean, that's a bit of a jump. Do we have a Dana White? I think we do. Look at that. Dana White. I think I made this when I was in a weird mood or something. F you, Dana White. You stupid sellout. Do I hate Dana White. Dana White. Let's remember this. Hashtag Dana White. That's the other thing. You know, a lot of people on the right, it's so stupid. Like, they're so upset that they can't say the word gay anymore. They can't say the word retard anymore, which is actually starting to bounce back. Speech like that is being a little more prominent, even in left-wing media, and is being it's not being silenced as much as it used to be. Which, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Could be good, could be bad. But the one thing that these bro flakes hate the most is to be called gay. And, Dana White over here and all of his little bro flake followers absolutely hate that kind of talk. So we're going to call Dana White from now on. But let's talk about him for a second. F the UFC, right? F Dana White. Why? Well, he was another person that jumped into this propaganda sphere. We got billionaires all over the place that we cucked the government to that are now manipulating our information and our media, spending their dollars to mass control us. And Dana White is one of those dudes. How did he do this? Why did he do this? Again, same situation. Same thing as Joe Rogan. Dude is worth $1 billion, maybe more. I'm not exactly sure. He is the head of the UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship, something that I watched since day one. I literally watched the very first UFC when it came out. I don't remember, it was like 1993 or something like that. Me and my dad thought it was going to be crazy. We ordered it on pay-per-view. It was like a big fan. I think we watched the first 3 on pay-per-view. And then I fell out of it for a while. And then it got popular again when they rebranded. And I was a huge UFC fan for a long time, which it's really hard for me to boycott and let go of the UFC because it was just something I was into. I trained Muay Thai. I did some fighting myself. I was a big proponent of the sport, and just as a way to stay in shape and train and to learn self-defense, all those things at once, until, I saw Dana White, out there becoming a part of this misinformation culture. And obviously it started with him and his $1 billion, right? Come on, let's think about this. What is 10% of $1 billion? That's $100 million that Dana White gets to keep in his pocket by putting a Republican in office. And so, do they give a shit how awful the person is? Do they give a shit that Trump was a rapist, an essayer, right? An abuser? Do they give a shit? But no, they don't, man. When you're talking about $1 billion, think about it. And honestly, think about it for yourself. I don't know. Some of us maybe are a little less swayed by money, but if hiring this piece of shit puts $100 million in your pocket, what are you going to do? And that's pretty obvious what Dana White, what his intention was. So, right from the get, his little addition to the propaganda sphere was to bring Trump in and give him ringside seats to every fight. Why was that important? It goes right back to the manosphere and how much of a chunk of the media the manosphere has held for some years now. The Andrew Tate bullshit, dude. Andrew Tate is one of the... do I have an Andrew Tate sign? I don't know if I do, but he's one of the lamest, weakest pieces of shit I've ever seen. Anyway, but they've had a big stranglehold on the manosphere, and that's exactly why Dana White was bringing Donald Trump into every UFC event. Put him at ringside. All of our bros, all of our tough guys, all of our fight lovers and enthusiasts and sport watchers and all this shit, they're going to see Trump every week or every month marching proudly into the octagon, watching a sport that he knows nothing about, and appearing to be cool like one of the guys, which he's not. And Dana White was in on it, right? Trump election means $100 million straight to Dana White's pocket. And he sure as hell did whatever he could to make that happen. And guess what happens, right? Right after Trump's elected, guess who's on stage at his acceptance speech? Whoa, why the hell is Dana White on the stage with Donald Trump for his acceptance speech? That's strange. Oh, they must have been working together this whole time, having him appear at his UFC events, doing shit behind the scenes, pushing this rapist a-hole piece of crap for his gain. And now, he's in Trump's close grip there. And then what happens? Just recently, Dana White is now appearing to join the board at Facebook, right? What? Why is Dana White joining the committee? What do you call that? The board of I can't think about it, the CEOs or whatever of Facebook. Why is Dana White joining that? He knows nothing about social media. He's a UFC fight guy. Why is he there? Well, that brings up our next topic. There we go. Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is his name. Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg. Owner, CEO of Facebook. Why do we hate Facebook now? It sucks, man. You know what sucks? It does. I'm not going to lie. It sucks not being a Trump loyalist zealot, right? Because we're losing a lot of shit, right? We're losing UFC. We're losing Facebook and Instagram, Joe Rogan. But you know what? All these people are douchebag sellouts anyway. So it's good that we're losing them, but it's going to make things a little bit difficult for a while until we find our equilibrium. We find the social media platforms that aren't sellout biased propaganda pushers. And I think things will finally level out. But we get to Mark Zuckerberg. I want to say Mark J. Zuckerberg for some reason. It just sounds like a fitting middle initial for the Cuckmeister himself. Mark Zuckerberg. Why are they connected? Why is Dana White connected with Mark Zuckerberg? It gets weird. It gets really weird, actually. I mean, I can't begin to understand the interworkings of Zuckerberg's mind. But he's always kind of seemed to be like on the out, like not in the cool group, if you will, as far as rich people go, right? Somehow, Elon, should we call him Elon Cuck? I don't know. Somehow he became king of the nerds, but then he became king of the bros too, and king of the everything, and the richest man in the world. But he's quite a popular billionaire, right? But Mark J. Zuckerberg has never been quite as popular, never quite as cool. And what he's always done with Facebook is always try to kind of appease the masses, right? So Congress would often call him in and harass him about the inner workings of Facebook, whose data is going where, who gets that data, how advertisers manipulate that data. And he's always gone to these congressional hearings and been kind of like a robot, right? I watched a lot of these congressional hearings personally and would often think to myself, man, he feels like he's getting picked on, right? And again, being the antithesis of a typical MAGA pansy, a MAGA moron, I don't punch down. I like to kind of protect the people that look, seem, or feel weaker. And in those moments, Zuckerberg seemed like he was being picked on. So I'd watch these hearings with Zuckerberg and kind of feel bad for him. He would often answer like a robot. He would often answer really knowledgeably about everything they were asking him and try to assure people in Congress that they're doing their best to do the right thing. I admired him for that, whereas everybody else in the media seemed to call him a robot and a fake and all these things. I admired at least the way he appeared in those congressional hearings. But he's kind of, as popular as Facebook has become, he's gotten beat down on all sides for years. And it's likely because that comes with the territory. You know, you're the most popular social media platform in the world with billions of people utilizing your platform. You're going to just get it from all sides. And he did. And I think being that punching bag for so long, kind of being looked at as the nerd billionaire, like the one that nobody likes, I think he wanted to finally have the taste of being cool. Something came up some months ago on social media about Elon versus Zuckerberg, right? Like, let's get him in a fist fight. Who would win? Some meme. And Elon Cuck, he immediately posted, yeah, I'd get in the ring with Zuckerberg. And it began this whole thing of like, who would win? People were showing Elon's body, you know, pictures, shirtless pictures of Elon. Now he's got this weird, giant, squarish belly. And then show pictures of Zuckerberg and how he kind of looks physically decent. It's like, oh yeah, Zuckerberg would probably win that fight. And it became big enough to where people for a while actually thought they were going to get in the ring together. And because of that, because Elon accepted that challenge, Zuckerberg started going to the gym. He started training jiu-jitsu, I believe. He started training fight sports. And in that, he started to get in good shape. He's kind of ripped now, I think. But he was becoming part of the bro sphere, right? And for the last couple of years, training jiu-jitsu, feeling like he's part of the cool club now, entering the bro sphere, the manosphere, that shifted him, right? Like he feels cool. He is cuck. He feels cool. He feels tough now. And now that Trump has been reelected, and everybody has bent the knee, everybody's so worried about what Trump is going to do to anybody that speaks against him, that Zuckerberg bent the knee. But that's there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than him just bending the knee. Trump gets elected. Zuckerberg offers him $1 million for his inauguration, which is crazy. I think like 10 billionaires have now donated $1 million for Trump's inauguration, which is fucking frustrating. The amount of money these people have taken out of our pockets, right? And they're just throwing millions of dollars for Trump's inauguration, which he could pay for himself, or who knows, his donors could pay for it. But now all the social media companies trying to get in Trump's good graces because they fear how he will sick the DOJ on people or fight against anybody who says anything bad about him. Where could that money go? That money could be going to help people, right? That money could be going towards the people that just lost their homes in Pacific Palisades, or the people in North Carolina who suffered from that hurricane. Like, oh, no. But we're gonna pad his belly, Trump's belly, with $1 million to kind of secure our safety. Fuck you, dude. Fuck you, Zuckerberg. But not just that. I think this introduction into the brosphere, into the fighting world, and around those type of people, brought him into this right-wing sphere that all these bro flakes think they have to belong in to become cool or to be part of a cool club. They brought in Zuckerberg, and now for the first time, he feels strong. He feels cool. He has a lot of friends. He has billionaire friends that don't make fun of him. Now he's like a fighter or a wrestler. And so, of course, he's joining the bro flakes, right? And now what happens? I don't know if we need to show the video. We could show the video, but we don't need to. He publishes a video telling the world that he's now pulling off his fact-checking algorithms or whatever on Facebook, and instilling community notes, which is what Elon Musk uses for Twitter, right? Community notes, which means anybody can say anything. The propaganda can still spread rampant. The misinformation can still spread wild, and there's nobody to fact check it. Why did he do that? Because that's how they're controlling us, right? That's how Elon is controlling us. That's how Trump is controlling us. That's how these billionaires who have now taken over the government are controlling us. And now Zuckerberg is joining in. And then what does he do after that? Well, of course, Dana White. Dana White is now joining his board at Facebook to continue adding and assisting into the manipulation of information to further split our society. So fuck you, Zuckerberg. Fuck you, Dana White. They're all becoming connected together into this oligarchy monopoly, in a sense, for ultimate control. And it's control, not just of our money, it's control of our minds, right? They're harnessing the algorithms and the information, and therefore they're controlling what we ingest. They're controlling the type of information that our eyes get to see that goes into our brain. And they're controlling what we believe, therefore controlling where we spend our money, who we put into power or keep into power. This is mind control. And removing fact-checking from the biggest platform in the world is the most dangerous and reckless thing anyone can do. And the fact that they're all in cahoots together now, right? Dana White's now on the board of Facebook. Zuckerberg's removing fact-checking. Elon Musk has already done that. He's already removed the fact-checking. He's already trained the algorithms to further instill right-wing propaganda. And you got Trump, the biggest liar on the planet, the grapist, killer of people. And I say that because of the amount of people that died due to his reckless words in mishandling COVID, which is also something that the right-wingers should be extremely mad about. Fuck you, Zuckerberg. The biggest thing we can do, and it's the only thing that we can do going forward, is to stop giving them our money. And it's going to be a long process, I think. we are all connected by these social media platforms, by these podcasters, by these people. How do we all at once boycott and get off of these platforms while still remaining connected with people? I think a lot of us are afraid of ditching Facebook because you lose, in some cases, decades of your personal content that you put up there, your pictures, your posts, your moments, your connections with friends, your friends' birthdays, all the connections you made over all that time. You lose that stuff. So they make it impossible for us to leave these platforms. So I think it's really important that we start trying to figure a way to free ourselves of this stranglehold that they have over our information. I have some ideas. Obviously, don't have and won't have the money to implement any of them. And I don't necessarily want to spread those ideas all over the internet in case I am one day able to build something out myself that could be of service or help in that way. But I do see how difficult everything has become, how hard it is for us to let go of these people and these things, and how much control they really do have over us. It's hard. It's upsetting. And that's the fight. That's the fight that we have in front of us. So fuck you, Trump. Fuck you, Elon Cuck, Mark Zuckerberg, Dana White. It sucks what things are coming to. And that's also kind of why I'm doing the show. And, we'll see how it goes as time progresses. But a lot of people on the left are trying to bridge to the right? We're stuck with this idiot for 4 years. And people are afraid. And the media landscape is changing. And again, one of the main reasons the media landscape is changing is because of how much money there is in it, right? MAGA supporters, Trump supporters consume so much content, like voraciously consume content, that there's so much money there. I mean, that's another reason why people like Joe Rogan swung to the right. When he would have right-wing influencers on his podcast, he would realize how many more hits he would get on those shows. Same thing with Elon Cuck to a point. He realized on Twitter how much engagement right-wing propaganda gets. That's where the money is, right? And also, Elon Cuck is so beholden to the government because we literally pay for his businesses to stay afloat. We'll talk about that in a minute. That he, of course, had to sell out and ditch his prior belief systems in order to support the right, because that's where his money comes from. Without right-wing tax policies and without government subsidies, Elon will not be the richest man in the world. He would tank. He would lose everything, which is another thing we have to do. That's what we have to gear toward. Stop giving these people our money, right? I mean, we're stuck now for 4 years. Elon Musk is going to get our tax dollars. He's going to get our subsidies. He's going to remain the richest man in the world and stay afloat because he's buddied up with the Republican Party. Yeah. God, I forgot where I was going on that train of thought. Maybe we should just go into it. Yeah, that's right. It's the way MAGA and Trumpism has affected all media. And I do have a bone to pick, and that's with TYT. I don't know if anybody out there knows the Young Turks. Young Turks is a progressive media YouTube channel, TYT. And don't forget, you know what? While we're at it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. All of The Good Truth on Twitter. It's The Good Truth X on Twitter. Gmail, thegoodtruth@gmail.com. Facebook, I think we have a The Good Truth page. YouTube, obviously, at The Good Truth. Here on Twitch, at The Good Truth. Everywhere you can find us at The Good Truth. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. TGT is way better than TYT. Drop the Young Turks. Unsubscribe from the Young Turks. And subscribe to The Good Truth. But yeah, that's what we were getting into. What has also changed? It's the bending of the knee. Not just the right-wing media. Not just the cucked billionaires bending the knee to Trump. Now we have left-wing progressive media bending the knee as well. And it gets right back into what I was saying before. Major parts of the left trying to bridge open to the right because they see and they know that we've got another 4 years, but they've realized how much money is in right-wing propaganda-based content. right? Even the Young Turks. The Young Turks have done it. Why? Because they need money. They want money. They want to be rich. They want to be successful. And they want more eyes on their content, right? All of these people in the media. If you look at Fox News, I don't remember those douchebags on Fox News. That guy who's like a literal douchebag. He wears a suit and tie and he just talks shit on trans people all day. Like these people, they go into their mirrors when they show up to work and they put on makeup and they wear their little suits and then they go in front of cameras with lights. They're freaking actors. Man, these are not real people. They're not cool people. They're going to say and do whatever they can to get eyes on them. And because right-wing media, MAGA people, they consume so much content, we've gotten to a point where that's why so many people are shifting over to them. It doesn't matter how much they lie. It doesn't matter how much they grape or cause harm like Donald Trump has. The media is leaning in that direction because that's where the money is. That's where people consume content the most. Why is that? Well, that's because you have a lot of older people that they have not, they grew up in a world where you believe the news. You believe what's on TV. They're not going to lie to you, right? And as news media, mainstream media has since the 90s edged more and more toward a monetary business model where whatever they can do to keep eyeballs on them the most is how they make more money. The older generations were not able to really adapt and evolve with that. So they've kind of been the most affected by these outrage tactics, these outrage bait tactics that like Fox News uses, media sources like that, keeps their eyeballs on the screen so they consume and they consume and they consume. Not to mention that right-wing media is always propagating doomsday bullshit, right? Fear tactics, fear mongering. This is how the brain operates. They get a hold of your most base brain functions and they exploit those things, right? How do you keep us engaged? You keep us mad, right? You keep us in fear. Like, I need to keep watching this shit so I know what's going on. So when the trans people come to attack me and turn all my kids gay, I'll see it coming because I'm focused on these guys that are telling me the truth. This is why they have such a stranglehold. And this is why people are now leaning more and more to the right. It's because of these outrage tactics, these outrage bait, this misinformation propaganda that tweaks our brain in that perfect little way to keep us engaged. And that's where we get to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, fuck you, Cenk. Anna Kasparian, fuck you, Anna. You guys are traitors. You don't deserve the money anymore. You don't deserve the subscriptions anymore. You don't deserve the platform anymore. Why is that? I'm going to start back before the election. And I consumed a lot of the Young Turks content for the last few years. I didn't much like them like a decade ago for no specific reason other than Cenk just didn't seem very cool, right? He just always just carried, he's kind of had this like chubby guy, like know-it-all kind of personality that was never really tasteful to me. So I didn't quite like him too much. Anna Kasparian was decent. She seemed to mimic a lot of Cenk Uygur's sentiments, and sometimes she had a mind of her own. Other times just seemed to kind of parrot a lot of what he would say. So before the election, maybe 6 months before, well, Trump started running for the election 2 years before the election, which is the longest campaign period in history. And the reason he did that was to get out of hot water from all the court cases against him, right? He wanted to come out and start his campaign before the court cases dropped so he can start, brainwashing the public before they made up their minds about whether or not he was guilty with the court cases that were coming. So that's why he began his campaign 2 years before, the longest period of presidential campaign in history. And during that time, I'm listening to the Young Turks, watching the Young Turks, and I start to notice that they're talking more shit on liberals, Democrats, and progressives than they are on Trump, right? And I couldn't really grasp why they're doing this, because we're sitting at a point in time before the election where we could either deal with fascism and authoritarianism or kind of get back to like real American politics and programs for the people and, law-abiding citizens, Nobody's above the law, like the way America's always been. Or we can have fascism, authoritarianism. So it seemed really, really important to me that all progressive left-wing media, like whether maybe it's a little disingenuous, I'm not sure, but you shouldn't really say bad things about your side when it's either your side or authoritarianism and the destruction of the Constitution, right? That seems like a really, really important thing to preserve. So if you have a big platform and you have a lot of people that consume your content, every time you say something bad about your side is giving more of a chance for Trump to win and the end of the Constitution and the rise of authoritarianism and fascism, right? And I started to notice that they spent more time every day talking shit on Biden than they did on Trump. And we're sitting here about to elect a rapist, somebody who caused more destruction in this country with the botched pandemic where 1 million people in our country died, more than any other country, right? Like India, with 1 billion people, the densest, most populous, and least hygienic country in the world, lost half the amount of people that we did from COVID, right? And it's because of Trump's reckless words, for months into the pandemic, going on TV, telling everybody it's just going to go away. That's why this happened. So you would think that somebody who's responsible for all these deaths, who has raped women, who has utilized his money and lawfare to put people out of business, to not pay the vendors that have helped him, to destroy people and families, and who has all these authoritarian ideas, who's literally quoted Hitler multiple times in his campaign speeches, who used to sleep next to Mein Kampf at his bedside, from what his ex-wife said in her memoir before she died. It seems pretty fucking important that you don't talk shit on your side and you tell everybody how bad the fascist guy is, right? But TYT didn't do that. They spent years, I would say 60% of their day was talking shit on their own people, right? I remember I got a buddy, as this was all starting and I didn't realize how bad TYT was getting, he was interested in politics and what's going on. I was telling him how bad Trump is and how he should listen to some of these left-wing channels like David Pakman. Amazing channel, amazing show. Brian Tyler Cohen, amazing dude, amazing show. And the Young Turks. And I mentioned the Young Turks because I'd said to him, sometimes they even talk shit on Biden. You might like that because he seemed to kind of not like Biden so much, but I wanted to put him into some social media or, some channels that weren't afraid to talk shit on their own people, but were against Trump, to kind of bring him into reality. And in fact, it did the fucking opposite, right? He goes on to the Young Turks and starts hearing every day how much Biden sucks, how much he should, get out of politics and whatever. And then obviously Biden has that awful debate and, they put in Kamala. And what do the Young Turks do? What does Cenk Uygur do? For the next 6 months, he talks shit on Kamala with his platform of progressive liberals, instead of repeating and reminding everybody that there's a rapist PDF file who is connected to the biggest PDF file in history that refuses to release the Epstein files. And he said that on TV. Trump has said this, I'll release the JFK files. I'll release intelligence about UFOs or whatever. Would you release the Epstein files? Oh, well, maybe not those, because, those could have a lot of lies in them. It's obvious he's a PDF file. He's a rapist. He's an essayer. He's a bad man. And the Young Turks and Cenk Uygur decided to spend all their time bashing their own people when we're at the forefront of, do we preserve democracy or do we allow authoritarianism? And for them to cuck themselves over to the right like that is disgusting. So fuck you, TYT. Fuck you, the Young Turks. Go subscribe to The Good Truth instead, because these people are not worth your money and your time anymore. They don't deserve their platform. Not only that, what does Cenk Uygur do? Right when Trump gets elected, I can't remember the name of the conference, but he goes to a Republican conference to speak in front of Republicans in like good-natured, good-mannered, good tone, like bridging bridging the gap to the Republicans, because a lot of them, I think in one point of his talk to the Republican people at that conference, it was about Mitch McConnell. Everybody booed Mitch McConnell. And he said, see liberals, the Republicans are booing Mitch McConnell. This is good news. This is great. No, it's not, Cenk. No, it's not. Just because they're booing one guy who's probably one of the worst senators in American history, who's done almost as much damage as Donald Trump has, does not mean they're on the same level. It does not mean they're coming over. It means nothing. What Cenk Uygur has been doing and has been proving over the last 2 years is that he wants that right-wing money. That's all it is. I remember previous to 2 years ago, I think they were still taking donations, talking about how, they're not rich. Liberal media doesn't make you rich. And then they started promoting more anti-progressive sentiments, right? And I think it's because they're getting more right-wing eyeballs on those shows. The more they talk shit on Biden, the more his numbers were going up, right? The more his numbers are going up, the more money he's making for him and his show. The more he bridges out to the right now, because they consume content so damn voraciously, the more money he makes. And I think he's been co-opted. I think he's in a lot of trouble right now with left-wing media. And a lot of them are talking shit. A lot of them are fighting and arguing with him about his choices to bridge the gap between the Republicans and to have good-natured conversations and agreements with the Republicans. He's getting a lot of shit for it. And I think it's rightfully so. He's essentially bending the knee. And why do I think he's bending the knee? Well, I don't know. I've told you why I think he's bending the knee. It's for money. It's for eyeballs. But I don't know. I've lost it. I get too heated up. I get too irritated, and I lose my train of thought. But yeah, I don't think he deserves this platform anymore. That's where I was going. The reason I'm upset about Cenk Uygur essentially bending the knee to the right is because they don't care. MAGA people, Trump supporters, right-wingers, they do not care what the left has to say. They're so deep in their fanaticism. They have their fingers in their ear. They're screaming la 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 la. That's all they're doing anytime anybody on the left speaks. They're so damn caught up in this and brainwashed under the symbolism and tribalism that they don't listen. The only thing people on the right respond to is humiliation and not being cool. Because remember, I said this before, I don't know, halfway through this show. These are the people in high school that did not have the balls to stick up for the little guy. So when the jocks and the popular people were picking on the nerds and the dorks, these were the people pointing and laughing, joining in on the beatdown so that the cool people and the jocks will think that they are cool. This is who MAGA is. And right now, MAGA has grouped up and become so big that that's all they're doing. They're pointing down, they're punching down at the trans people, the gay people, the minorities, because that's who they are. And what do those people respond to the most? It's when it gets pointed back at them. It's just like Donald Trump, right? The things that he responds to the most are when he gets humiliated. When people call him a liar. When people say bad things about him, he can't even help himself. He goes in the public and he mentions that stuff. He calls it lies, he dismisses it, but he brings it up because it affects him. People like them, the most weak-minded people in society, they have to be in a group. They have to feel cool. They have to feel like part of the club. It's the most important thing to them. Only thing they respond to is humiliation and not being cool, right? Why do you think Trump makes all these freaking stupid nicknames up for people like Gavin New Scum, right? Right? He's dog whistling to all his people saying, I'm the cool guy because I'm making up the stupid nickname for the guy that we don't like. Let's all go make fun of the guy we don't like. Haha, he's got a stupid name, right? That's the only thing these people respond to. And so that's what we have to hit him back with, right? We have to hit Zuckerberg where it hurts. We have to hit Gaina White where it hurts. Elon Cuck where it hurts. They need those nicknames. That's how we need to talk to them. We don't reach out and bridge the gap with these people. The only way they're going to wake up and come out of their brainwashed sphere as if they're the dorks and the losers. If they're the ones being humiliated, if they're the ones that people are laughing at and talking down to, that's when those people wake up. You don't bridge the gap like the Young Turks and Cenk Uygur trying to get that Republican MAGA money and try and talk to these people as if they're normal. You don't do that. That doesn't work. We've proven that doesn't work. When you do that, they just know they're right, and then they elect the misogynist PDF file grapist, right? So as a whole, not only do we need to like boycott the people that are bending the knee, like the Young Turks and like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon, we need to gain a white. We need to, you know how many better fight clubs there are than UFC? They're actually way better fight. I think there's one called karate.com or something like that, where they got like a way better cage setup and they're using different styles of martial arts like the old school UFC used to be. It's actually way better. But I mean, we've got to find our way out and away from these people. And then once we get away from these people, we need to start punching down at them, right? They're the ones that have been punching down on everybody. It's time for these bullies to get it right back in their face. They need dumb nicknames. They need to be called out and humiliated on a daily basis. If they're our friends and family, I'm sorry. They don't deserve the respect anymore. Like, they want to put grapists in power. They don't deserve the respect until they've been humiliated enough that they leave that shit and never want to go back, right? I've left some friendships, stopped talking to certain family members. There's, some that I could never do that to, that I'm gotta keep my strength together and try and communicate with civilly. And that's just the way things are. And I'm sure other people will have that in their lives. But for the most part, you should not support anybody who supports grapist essay PDF files like we have in office. And we need to start punching down at them, because that's the only way they respond. Humiliate the MAGA morons. Humiliate the MAGA pansies. These are the weak people. And that's what we have to do going forward. That's the only way we win. And we got to cut out people that bend the knee, period. There's no excuse for that. Anyhow, I don't know if we got much more to go on tonight. Let's see what we have in the old phone here. We're at about an hour and a half. Oh, I think we could talk about the fires a little bit. I think that's quite relevant. Do we have anything we can put up for the California wildfires? I don't have anything pre-made. I do have this great Elon Musk one. There we go. Should we talk about Elon a little bit? I don't know if we will. We could. He's the biggest cuck of them all. Where's the zoom function on this thing? Where is it? Oh, it's way over there. There we go. Boom. That's too much. That one's great. I made that one. And again, I am an ally with LGBTQ plus community. I am against MAGA morons, the MAGA pansies, their way of marketing anti-woke, anti-trans stuff. But I purposefully make these references and these pictures because that's what they hate the most, right? They are so afraid of being called gay or being associated with gay people. Like, they're such homophobes on the right that it only feels fitting to put rainbows all over this Elon stuff. He's one of the biggest proponents of anti-woke culture, and it's because he's the most afraid of it. He himself, Elon Cuck, has a trans son, right? I think trans male to female son. I think it was his firstborn. And I believe, I don't know the entire story, but when Elon was married to the wife of his first child, as he grew up, I think he got gender affirming care, and Elon was part of that, or Elon pushed for that or something like that. Like, he was convinced to push for the gender affirming care. I don't know, whatever. Since Elon has decided to go full on MAGA, he has basically disowned his trans child and has since gone on a full rampage, anti-trans rampage, for years now, which is just not only being an awful father, but that's being an awful human being. Once again, I was a big fan of Elon Cuck. Huge fan, because early on in his career, he was liberal, seemed to be an empathetic human being. He fought for the rights of minorities, and he fought for science and to protect against climate change, as one would do in his business. He believes in science. Like I mentioned before, what changed? Why does he suddenly not care to support people that don't believe in climate change? Why does he not care about any of that stuff anymore? Well, it comes down to first of all, his ego. His ego got so damn big that becoming the richest man in the world, can you imagine what it would do to your ego if you soon lost everything? So his ego got so big, it became so famous and so popular. What with the right ideals, protecting the environment and stuff like that, he got to a point to where he needed right-wing politicians to keep his business afloat, because he received so much subsidies from our government, from our dollars, that he needed to side with the right-wingers. And it goes back to like the Joe Rogan shit and the Gaina White stuff. These people, once they get to a level of rich, they always sell themselves out for tax dollars, right? Elon is like the Giga Chad version of those people. If he doesn't have a Republican in office to transfer our tax dollars directly into his pocket, he's over. Like, this Cybertruck business has been such a destroyer of Tesla and his stock. He's got to answer to the stockholders. What is he worth? $250 billion, right? What is an extra 10% tax break on the type of money that he brings in being worth $250 billion? You're talking, that's putting billions of dollars into his pocket just by hiring Trump again alone. Trump's tax plan gave the rich, ultra rich and corporations 10% higher tax break than has ever been given to the ultra rich and corporations in history. And he's going to do it again, right? So that's an extra, it's billions of dollars in Elon's pocket. And mind you, I believe, what with the way he was leaning, the amount of money we've given him, actually SpaceX, he touts it and promotes it as a big win when it's actually a huge loss. And I don't think most people know that. His technology in SpaceX isn't really that amazing, even though he promotes it as such, because that's all Elon really is at the end of the day, is a marketing. If he's a genius at anything, it's marketing. He convinces everybody that his turds are valuable and that they're really, really, really cool. And then people put more money into his stock, and his value goes up. He convinces the government to give him more money because he's doing all these amazing things, but it's not really true. Like the technology for his spacecraft, self-landing spacecraft, we've had that since the 70s. NASA stopped utilizing it, stopped developing it. He picked it back up, got government money in order to continue this. And that's, what keeps SpaceX afloat, obviously, is our tax dollars. Tesla, the only reason Tesla got off the ground was because of our tax dollars. He bought the company from a failing car company. Two guys, they invented Tesla. They came up with the premise, came up with the car, whatever. He purchased it from them and then was able to work a magic deal with the government to get subsidized, to where if you buy his car, you get a tax break. And that's why Tesla blew up. He used our money, our government money, subsidies, and our tax dollars to blow up Tesla. It wasn't because he was a genius. It wasn't because of anything else. Marketing, government subsidies. Same thing with SpaceX. He's actually been at a loss with SpaceX, but he's convincing the public that we're jumping leaps and bounds forward with the technology, which we really aren't. I think he was given $3 billion in the last run with SpaceX, and he was supposed to have all of the kinks in self-landing or whatever worked out by 2022, and it's still not worked out yet. He was supposed to start, I think that's what it was. He was supposed to start earning back money, right, by reusing the spacecrafts. And then after you launch a certain amount of spacecrafts over a certain amount of time, when you're reusing all those materials, then space flight becomes massively cheaper. And by 2022, he was already supposed to have been doing that with the $3 billion that we'd given him, when in fact, he's not even close to doing that. It's a big failure and a big loss, and he's spent, used, and wasted a lot of our money. And if it ever happens, we're still a long way away from, what he has sold us that he would do with our tax dollars, which is also why, and this is one of his tactics, whenever you fail at something in business, you jump onto the next idea and you get people to keep believing in you, right? It's what he's done with Tesla. It's like, oh shit, I failed. Here's the new car. This is the great thing we're going to do next. Don't worry that we're 4 years late on releasing the Sportster. Pay attention to this new thing we're doing. Boom, give us your money, give us your money, give us your money. He's doing the same thing with SpaceX. It's like, okay, we failed by 2022, being able to reuse all of our spacecraft. So what are we focusing on? Mars. We're going to Mars. We're taking everybody to Mars because as a species, we need to be multi-planetary. It's fucking bait and switch. It's all Elon does. It's part of his marketing. It's how he can fail so much, but keep us engaged and keep us giving him his money, giving him our money, is by that bait and switch. And, mind you, these ideas are so out there, exciting, futuristic, that people don't generally tend to really think out the possibility, right? I think he was building the first, the Hyperloop, right? Underground pressurized tunnel for mass transport, which had already been debunked like decades before. But instead of doing, the research, I guess, you would think Elon Musk would research this kind of stuff. He started building a test Hyperloop for like $1 billion and digging tunnels and pressurized tubes, which always, or depressurized tubes, I believe, they always implode and crush. They're one of the most dangerous things ever. And this was figured out decades ago, but he spent $1 billion doing that because it was such a grand idea to distract you from his other failures and the things that he had said he would release that never got released, to keep the shareholders happy, to keep people buying his stock, to keep pumping it up. And then what happens when the Hyperloop doesn't work out after he's put $1 billion into it? Well, you just slowly quiet down about that shit and start bringing up other stuff, right? Like reusable rockets, right? And then reusable rockets, even though he's convincing the public that it's been going well, even though he's 3 years behind and he's cost us more money than if we gave that same money to NASA. Then what's next? Mars, right? We're going to Mars. And it's so exciting that people don't realize that if we have the technology and the power to go to Mars and terraform it and make it habitable for humans, we should be using that same power to heal the planet we're on now, right? That's what we forget. The fact of the matter is we don't have that technology yet. We can't terraform an entire planet. Yeah, it would be exciting. Maybe he'll send a ship there. Are we going to put feet on Mars anytime soon? No, it's not going to happen. We are not even close to that yet. And with that money, with our money, with the government money that is being given to Elon, we should be using it to save our own planet. And again, that's why Elon Cuck is one of the worst people on the planet right now. And it's because his ego has gotten so damn big. He can't fail. It would be the most humiliating thing in history. So he sold out his convictions and his beliefs, and turned to the right because he knew he can get the propaganda to fuel his ego. He can get the money from the right. He can get our money, and the tax breaks that always come with it. Further hurting us, further taking our money, making the gap larger between the rich and the middle class, and maintaining his stature as the richest oligarch. And that's why he decided to turn to the right. That's why he bought Twitter. He didn't care if Twitter died. It became his tool of manipulation. Just like the marketing he's done on Twitter to turn people to the right, toward authoritarianism, toward anti-constitutional beliefs. The right are the new communists, by the way. They called the left, they always called them socialists and communists. Meanwhile, they're the ones voting for people that are literally doing anti-constitutional things, that hired Supreme Court justices that have literally ruled against the Constitution. Republicans, you're the new Republicans. You're the new commies. You're the new commies. Siding with the Russians when the Russians have invaded a sovereign nation just to take their land. where the president, the moron, MAGA moron, has never said anything bad about all the authoritarians in the world, but then talks shit on our allies and is now talking about invading our allies, just like Russia has done to Ukraine. If you are a Republican today, you are the new commie. Trump is a commie. Trump is just like them, trying to take our allies' land, trying to invade, trying to expand. You're the new commie, Republicans. You're the new commie. Oligarchy, right? Elon Cuck, same thing as Russia. You got a handful of oligarchs in Russia with Putin controlling the media, manipulating everybody, keeping their money, growing the gap between the rich and the poor, and trying to take power. Elon Cuck is one of those oligarchs. He's our proud American oligarch, even though he's from South Africa. So yeah, those are the people we say fuck you to today. Here on the second episode of The Good Truth, I know we got some things to work out. I think eventually I'll start putting together show notes and having more kind of cohesive thoughts, maybe even bring on guests to talk with here in our underground bunker. But it's good to get back on air. It's good to get the show going again. I think we're at about an hour and 42, so we might call it a day here. Got a lot of things to continue talking about. That's right. I was going to talk about the fires a little bit. Should I keep going? I don't know if I should keep going. All we know, we'll talk about the fires on the next one. But all we know is that immediately after so many people lost their homes, lost their lives, for a fire that was uncontrollable, not because the government was at fault, but because it's a natural disaster. The first thing that the right-wingers do, the first thing Trump does, instead of saying well wishes and hope and sadness and apologies to the people that lost their livelihoods, lost their lives, lost their homes, he politicized it. And he blamed Gavin Newsom, which is not even close to his fault. And they're blaming the mayor, which is not even close to her fault. And it's gross. It's disgusting. Punching down, right? That's all they do. They're never wrong. They're never in the wrong. And the people that aren't on their side are always in the wrong and always at fault. I mean, right there, just seeing that, no accountability on their side and putting the blame on everyone else, like, it just befuddles me that Republicans can't see that. That's enough right there. Wouldn't matter which side I'm on. If I saw my leaders doing that, I'd be like, you're fucking wrong, dude. I cannot support you. And it's sad that there's so many people that are so blind to that. Anyway, just a little iota of truth here. That whole area that burned is mountainside region, which, you know, it's impossible to get waterworks infrastructure up these mountainsides and hillsides. A lot of it's kind of rural-ish, and it butts right up against the big Palisades neighboring areas. Have you ever seen a fire hydrant on a mountainside? No, you haven't, because they don't build waterworks to go up mountainsides. You don't go into a mountainous neighborhood and see fire hydrants everywhere for a reason. They just don't build that infrastructure anywhere, right? So generally when those types of places catch on fire, it spreads really rapidly, especially on a mountainside valley-like atmosphere. There's a lot more wind cascading off those mountains, pushes harder, pushes the fire through, and becomes more dangerous. The stuff about the governor not allowing water into California, it's a complete lie. Trump made it up. The problem is there were like 8 fires that started at the same time with 100-mile-an-hour winds that were so uncontrollable. It's too dangerous for firefighters to fight a lot of that. They have to just let some stuff burn. There's no other choice. And then when the winds calmed down enough to fight the fires, there were so many people tapping into the system at once, it relieved pressure. And so they couldn't get water. There was too much fire because it was a natural disaster. People talk about the budget cut, $17 million budget cut that the mayor did in LA, which is a complete lie. Well, there may have been a $17 million cut on paper, but it had something to do with a certain type of funding. And then later on in a different format, there was an extra $50 million added after the $17 million was removed in one certain area of the budget. It's just convoluted. At the end of the day, the LA Fire Department has actually doubled in budget year to year for like the last 10 years. Like maybe not doubled, but increased massively year over year. So the $17 million bullshit, that's why the responders couldn't respond and why the fires happened, it's complete garbage, complete lie. And then when you really think about it logically, the LA County Fire Department has a $1.6 billion yearly budget, right? $1.6 billion yearly budget. Do you think that 17 million out of 1.6 billion, which was increased over the last couple of years by way more than $17 million, do you think that really makes a difference as to whether or not people could respond in time, firefighters could respond in time? That 17 million out of 1.6 billion that was increased, it doesn't make any sense. It's false. It's a lie. It's not the mayor's fault. It's not Newsom's fault. If anybody, it's the infrastructure of LA that was put in hundreds of years ago or 100 years ago or something. Blame the mayor, the first mayor of the Pacific Palisades 100 years ago, for not putting enough waterworks in, right? Really, it's just dumb-minded sheep, brainwashed fanatics that they're so delusional, so mind-numbed, brainwashed, and just not very intelligent that they have to pin these massive issues on one person. And that also comes down to, again, the way the media handles it and the way the brain works, right? Just as humans, our minds can't handle really, really large numbers. Tribalist ways always had smaller groups of friends. Tribes were smaller, not massive. So our brains evolved around like smaller groupings of people. So imagining what tens of millions of people are like is like impossible for our brains to really handle. So big situations like this, natural disasters, our brains tend to want to find a single blaming point, something to hold responsible for all this bad stuff that happened, when generally issues like this are a multitude of reasons. Very complicated situations, from the infrastructure to the way reservoirs work, to the way the electricity in certain areas is needed to utilize the infrastructure to tap into the waterworks, just like budget allocations, where fire departments are located, how many people can be sent out in particular situations, whether or not the wind in the fire is too much to where it's way too dangerous to even try to fight the fires, to where too many people would lose their lives if we tried to fight something like this. There's just so many complicated things that come down to a natural disaster, so many complicated reasons. It's never one person's fault. Like even bringing up Donald Cuck and the pandemic, you can't blame the entire pandemic on him, right? He is a lot to blame for a lot of deaths of Americans because he recklessly went on TV and told them not to worry about it and to do whatever you want and hang out with your families and your friends and party and whatever, because it's just going to go away. Yeah, he's responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, in my opinion. Is he responsible for the pandemic? No, it's a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot more things involved than just Donald Trump being reckless. While his decisions did cause a lot of death, we still, I think there was like the idea that it came from a lab, the idea that somebody bit the head off of a bat, these crazy things. Our transit systems worldwide, planes flying into every other country in every which direction at all times of the day, spreading things. The fact that the virus itself takes 10 days before it shows itself and is visible, with symptoms, like all those things together are what created that giant mess we're in. Yes, Trump was awful and he is responsible for probably hundreds of thousands of lives, but as a whole, it's a very, very complicated situation. This fire, very, very similar, and there was no Trump-like actor that caused massive failures during this fire. Gavin Newsom didn't do anything out of the ordinary to exacerbate the situation. The mayor of LA didn't do anything out of the ordinary to exacerbate this situation. It was a very complicated, freak situation with nobody really to blame at the top, because it's just a lot of bad things. And you could say the same thing about the North Carolinian hurricane and all the damage that was done there. Is the mayor of the city where that hurricane did the most damage, is she responsible? No. What did the Republicans try to do? They tried to blame somebody. They tried to blame Biden, right? They blamed Biden and made up a bunch of lies that FEMA wasn't giving the help that was needed to the people that for that hurricane. They did the same thing. The Republicans tried to pin it on one guy because that's the way our brain works. They marketed that to you, which ended up hurting a lot of people. Or a lot of people that refused the help from FEMA because they thought it was corrupted by left-wing liberals because Trump said so. And so there were people that were hurting themselves and not accepting the help from FEMA. When it was all lies, it was all bullshit. And it's just another manipulation that the right always does. Pin everything on one person because that's how the brain works. And that's an edge into the propaganda sphere. Fires weren't the Democrats' fault. The fires weren't a mayor's fault. Fires weren't Newsom's fault. It's a freak accident. That's what happened. Maybe we'll talk about it more next time. I've talked about a bunch of shit tonight. It's good to be back. I got to get used to communicating in this medium again. Some of you may know I used to do a podcast back in the day. It was one of the first fairly popular podcasts back in the early Joe Rogan days. It's a podcast called Burn Down Hollywood. It's since been taken completely off the internet. I've got to find all the old files and maybe put them up again. Maybe I will one day. We did so many episodes of that I was actually quite good at hosting a show, in my opinion, back then. And it's something I've got to get used to again. And also, what with COVID and all the crazy shit we've dealt with over the last bunch of years, just communicating in general, hermetizing yourself and staying inside and not being in groups for so long and not doing podcasts, it really takes a toll on the ability to communicate. So it'll be good to come back here from time to time, get this stuff off my chest, keep reminding everybody, F Dana White, F Elon, F this guy, FTYT. Always subscribe to The Good Truth. Forget the Young Turks. And F the cuck master of them all. The biggest cuck master of them all, Joe Rogan. Such a douchebag bro flake. All of them are bro flakes. But really, we've got to do whatever we can to keep this guy powerless over the next 4 years. So vote blue, vote Democrat. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, everything The Good Truth over on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. For now, we're not going to be there for long. We are at The Good Truth X on Twitter. We're at The Good Truth here on Twitch. We're at The Good Truth here on YouTube. You can send us an email at thegoodtruth@gmail.com. And you can find us at Blue Sky, at The Good Truth on Blue Sky. That's it for me. It's been almost 2 hours. That's what I wanted to go for anyway. Let's, I think we're on TikTok too. Hold on. What's our TikTok? I think it's TGT Live on TikTok. I don't even remember. We don't know if TikTok's going to be around much longer. Come on, where's the TikTok at? There it is. I think, I don't want to keep going, but Trump was one of the first people to want to instill the ban on TikTok. That was a big right-wing thing. And now that, he just wants to do whatever he can to stay in power. If it makes him more popular, he might actually go against the TikTok ban when he gets into office. A lot of people are going to like that. A lot of people aren't going to like that. So we're not sure if it's going to be around in the near future. It could go away. I don't have a big presence on TikTok, but we'll see what happens. So you can find me there, TikTok, also at The Good Truth Live on TikTok. So all the mediums, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, The Good Truth. Fuck the Young Turks. Fuck right-wing politics. Fuck Elon Cuck. Fuck Mark Zuckerberg. Fuck Trump. We'll see you later. Thanks for watching. We'll get a lot of these clips up in the next few days on all of our social media platforms. So don't forget to subscribe on all of those. Thanks again for being here. Thanks again for watching my rants and my craziness and my tangents. Really got to start putting a better show together, but at least we're here. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Grease for peace.